Okay, this is our first history video, and we are going to be continuing with Grant's personal information. So, we started the other day talking a little bit about Julia Dent Boggs, who was Ulysses S. Grant's wife. And so, we talked a little bit about her personality and how she loved being in the White House and how she was a Southern Belle and all of that. And so, now we're going to talk a little bit about Grant. Also, I want you to keep in mind as we go through this video, feel free to pause, write down what you can, and then play it. You can do this completely at your own speed. You don't have to keep up with me, and I don't necessarily have to pause and wait for you because you can pause me as you go and do it at your own speed. Okay, so here are the notes. He was born, this is really cool, he was born not far from where we are. His house is actually available to go and see. It's not too far from us. I've never been. It's not open during the winter. You have to wait till springtime comes, but I plan on going sometime soon. He was born as Hiram Ulysses Grant, which if you notice, that doesn't sound like the name that we wrote down at the top of the page. And he was born in 1822 in Point Pleasant, Ohio. It doesn't happen until later, but I'm going to go ahead and give you this information. He changed his name to Ulysses Hiram when he signed up for West Point Military Academy because, now this is pretty cool, he realized that his initials were H-U-G, hug, and he was going into the military. And so he didn't think that that would look good on his trunk when he was with the other guys in the bunk. So he signed up as Ulysses Hiram Grant, but the guy who sent in all his paperwork and signed him up actually wrote it down as Ulysses Simpson, which was a mistake, which wound up being U.S. Grant. But when he found out, he just kept it. He kept the S, and he liked that, and then people started calling him Uncle Sam, and then some of the people that he graduated with just called him Sam. So that's why he has a different name than what he was born with. Okay, I'm going to move it up. So remember, pause and go back if you need to get any of that down. He was the oldest of 6 siblings. His father was a tanner, and if you remember me reading Amos Fortune Freeman to you, you remember that a tanner is someone who takes animal skins and takes them through this process and makes them into leather. So this is interesting because his father was this tanner. He was a tough guy. He was kind of a little rough, outspoken, and Grant, even as a boy, was the opposite. He was shy and he was squeamish, which is interesting. Even as an adult, he did not like the sight of animal blood. He always wanted his meat well done, and he never even ate fowl, which is like chicken and turkey. He said he couldn't eat anything that walked on 2 legs. And he didn't hunt, which he was raised in Ohio, which was considered kind of not necessarily frontier, but it was considered kind of west at the time, and he didn't do what most boys like to do. He was kind of shy, he was soft-spoken, he was quiet. I thought this was one thing that I read about him. Also said that he was kind of proper. He didn't use bad language. He didn't like dirty jokes, which was kind of interesting if you think about the fact that he was a military guy. He probably would have been around a lot of men who were just didn't care about what they said, wanted to just get a laugh, and he was not like that. He was serious. He was well disciplined, even though he wasn't necessarily good at everything he did. But he was well disciplined in what he did. He was loyal to his friends, and we see that as being kind of a fault when he becomes president and he starts hiring all his friends because he likes them and he's loyal to them, and they're not necessarily good, the best people for the position. So we'll see that kind of come and get him a little bit later. But he is loyal to his friends. He loved horses. That was something he was very good about, even good at. When he went to the military academy, he was good with horses. His horsemanship was good, and that was something he loved to be around. He loved pipes, and he loved smoking cigars too. Let me change that a little bit because it should say here cigars. He loved cigars, and because it was a known fact when he became president, so many people sent him cigars. He had thousands of them. He just gave them away. He always had one in his mouth, but he was able to give so many away because he had so many. He liked to draw and paint also, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now this is a cool story. He loved driving horses fast. Not just driving them fast. And once he was driving his horse and carriage down the street when he was president in front of the White House, and he was stopped by a police officer and given a speeding ticket for $20, which he paid. So I think that was pretty cool. Okay, so backing up just a little bit. That was a little bit about his personality, but I want to back up and give you a little bit more about his history. We saw what it was like as he was growing up. He was a little different than his father. His mother was very religious, and he really got along better with his mother than his dad. But his dad signed him up when he was about 17 years old for West Point Military Academy. Grant didn't know about this. He didn't have his permission. He just signed him up for the military academy. I guess he thought it was good for him. And Grant didn't want to go because he thought he was going to flunk out, which was probably an accurate assessment. But he didn't think he would do very well at military academy. But he went anyway. He passed, but out of like 30-something students, he ranked about 20-something, so he didn't do that great. And he wasn't the perfect fit for the military academy. He was good at math, and he was good at horses. And what I read said that was pretty much it. He wasn't really good at military strategy. He wasn't good at all the other classes that you have to take, but he was good at math, and he was good with the horses. Then when he went to his first military assignment, he didn't do that great about it. I think he probably drank more than he should. He was away from his wife, which he hated, which is probably the reason why he drank. And he resigned from it and went home. He tried different things. He tried farming. He wasn't really good about it. He tried investing in different things, and none of it was very successful. He eventually wound up going back and working with his dad at the tannery. He served in the Mexican War when he was a young man, and then when the Civil War came around, he wanted to help. His family was abolitionists. They did not agree with slavery, and so I think that's probably one reason why he wanted to serve in that. So he served he served for the Union, and he just had one victory after another after another. He was actually in charge of one of the first victories in the Civil War, which gained him a lot of attention and popularity. So I have here that he had great victories during CW, remember, what am I doing that as? Civil War. That won him fame and made him very popular. So he just worked his way up. He got promoted and promoted and promoted and promoted to different higher military positions as he went along. And then after the Civil War, he was actually promoted as like the general of the whole army, which hadn't been done since Washington was. And after everyone didn't like Johnson and was disheartened with Johnson, Grant was like the best pick because everyone loved him. Everyone felt like he won the war. And so, hey, let's get Grant as president. He didn't necessarily want it, but he just said, okay, he went along with it. He was nominated as president with the slogan, "Let us have peace," which I think is pretty cool because at that point, everyone was pretty much ready for peace. They had problems with all that turmoil with Johnson and being impeached and everything going on. They just wanted to put the Civil War behind them. They wanted to put Johnson's term behind them, and they wanted to move on. First for him was he was the first president whose both parents were alive to see him become president. So I thought that was kind of a cool first too. Neither one of them were at the inauguration, but they were both alive at the time he became president. His dad did come and visit him a few times while he was president, but his mother never did make it to the White House. So there's a few things about him. Remember, pause, go back, write a few things down if you need to. And I will see you tomorrow, and we'll talk about at least some of the events during his presidency. Remember, I told you there's quite a few. We're looking at 8 very important years in history of some things happening and changing. And so I will see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.